You're listening to the 49 Carats podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats podcast. I'm your host, Steph. We're on episode 2 of a triple feature today. In the midst of 49ers free agency and all that crazy stuff going on, I have a prospect interview here. Joining me today is Vanderbilt cornerback, former UConn cornerback, Jeremy Lucien. How's it going today, Jeremy?
It's going well. I'm doing well. How about you?
Not too bad. Make sure you guys give this video a thumbs up for Jeremy. We're going to get right into it. Jeremy, you spent your first 4 years at UConn. Ultimately, you decided to transfer out. Why did you feel like that was the right time for you to move on from UConn?
Yeah, so when I came into UConn in 2018, the team was pretty young at that point. There were a lot of freshmen and sophomores who had to step up and play that year because we were pretty thin at a lot of positions, especially in the secondary. So it was kind of difficult for those first 2 seasons to be a really competitive team because a lot of other teams we were playing against were just a lot bigger, faster, and stronger. So it was a little bit of a struggle those first 2 years, but I had decent success here and there my freshman year, and then sophomore season was a little bit better in 2019. Then COVID rolls around in 2020. We were one of the few teams that actually opted out from the season, which was really weird. It was the first time since I started playing football when I was 7 that I hadn't played truly competitively in the fall, like played against other people. I remember all we did was we still had practices during the week, but I mean, it wasn't for anything. Like we weren't playing on Saturdays. And aside from that, we were just like lifting and doing speed work. So it was definitely a really weird time, like kind of just being a spectator. But it was a blessing in the sense that it gave everybody a chance to heal from any previous injuries and then just spend a year just training, getting bigger, faster, and stronger ourselves. So going like through the fall and then into the spring, there was a lot of hype surrounding the team. A lot of our fans had, these big expectations for, how's this team going to be coming out of the COVID year and like going into the next season. Unfortunately, 2021 season was pretty rocky. So for me personally, I had my most solid showing to date, but just for the team, things didn't really go the way that anybody expected. I think we finished 1-11 that year. So at that point, I knew I only had a season left of eligibility, and just with the dreams that I have to play at the next level, I knew that I was probably gonna need to go somewhere else, get like a little bit of a better opportunity to go up against, better talent, just be around a program that had some better energy surrounding it, like more positive energy. So I felt that it was, I even though I have love for the place, put in a lot of time there, made a lot of lifelong friends, I did feel that it was time to move on at that point.
And so you spend your final year at Vanderbilt. What was it about Vanderbilt that made it the right fit for you? I know you said you were looking for, some more positivity. Did you feel like, Vanderbilt was a spot to find that for you?
Yeah, so it's funny. My last season at UConn, we actually played Vanderbilt midway through the season. It's a game that I think about constantly because we ended up losing on a last-second field goal. Would have been hilarious or not hilarious, but it would have been awesome if we won. But then hilarious winning that game and then also like having transferred to Vanderbilt right after because I definitely would have been talking a ton of trash to everybody there. But when I was in the portal, once they had reached out to me, I started jumping for joy because first and foremost it's the SEC, it's the best conference with the best competition in college football. So that was the most appealing part of it. But then also Vanderbilt is a very high academic school, and I'm a kid who does care about academics a lot. So I figured that coming to a school like this, I would be around a lot of like-minded people, and it would be really easy to kind of fit in and mesh with the guys right away, which is exactly what happened. So I definitely feel like it was the right decision for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you mentioned, the academic side of it. And I don't mean to go too far into the Jeremy archives, but I did see that in high school, you did spend 3 months in Spain as an exchange student. And that sounds like an awesome experience. Is there anything about that time that kind of sticks with you today?
Yeah, so I actually still have I probably would say maybe once a month, once every 2 months. I have dreams that I'm back there, and everything will be in fluent Spanish. So I can't speak Spanish as well now, but when I have dreams that I'm back there, I'm speaking completely fluent Spanish. Um, but yeah, it was a really fun time. I was really kind of against it before I even made the trip. But my mother and my football coach at the time actually like they kind of pushed me into it and convinced me to do it. Um, and I'm glad that they did it because ultimately I had a really good experience. The first week to week and a half was really awkward because I couldn't speak Spanish as well at the time, and my host family spoke zero English. So I remember being in the kitchen and having my dictionary out on my phone, just like kind of trying to Google words so I could translate them. But I eventually like started breaking through my shell, getting more comfortable. And like my host family made the transition really easy. And so while I was over there, I was with a bunch of other students from my school.
Mm.
We took 5 classes all in Spanish, which was kind of an adjustment because I'm used to taking everything in English. The teachers are speaking in English. I had to
Right.
all reading and stuff was in Spanish. I remember taking math over there. So me and another student or 2 other students, we were taking math classes over there. The teacher didn't speak English very well. It was okay, but that just made it a little bit hard to understand. So that was the academic side. But then because football is important to me, obviously, one of the biggest knocks on me has been that as much as I care about academics, like how much does he really care about like football and about just sports in general? So I made sure while I was over there to like kind of use that as a chip on my shoulder. So one of the first things I did after getting there was ask my host parents where I could find a gym. So there conveniently was a gym like a 5-minute walk away from the house. So went over there and spent I think a couple $100 on a gym membership. So I was going there a few times a week. This town I was in, it's called Coruña. It's actually right on the beach. So I like walk along the beach on my walk to school every day. So a couple times a week after school, I would go home, put my workout stuff on. I would run to the beach from the house. It was about maybe a 5-minute run. I would do like a little workout. I would fill up my backpack with a ton of books and like other heavy objects to add some extra weight. Do some running on the beach. There were a couple hills, so I was running hills at the end too, doing some like change direction and plyos. And then after my workout was done, I would go back onto like the street level, sprint all the way back to the house. I would just be running past people, and they would all be like turning their heads, like, "Who is this guy?" So I made sure that I was still keeping up with my training over there because I didn't want to fall behind any of my teammates. But just so that was my whole experience. I would 100% do it again if I could go back in time. I loved it a lot. It gave me a chance to just kind of see more of the world, get more perspective on life and what other cultures are like. So that's why one of my goals for the future is to eventually get to a point where I can travel like that regularly.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like it was a lot of fun, and just 3 months, but like it sounded like it was an entire full experience for you.
Mhm.
Um, and go still talking about like the academics and stuff. For one, I think it's crazy that any team or just like anyone would hold it against you that you are academic and also question like is he serious about football? That's crazy to me. If anything, I would think like that's a bonus, right? Because you got someone who I'm sure some of that like translates to your film study. It translates to like how you learn a playbook, things like that. But that I
Yeah,
digress.
I get it because typically those two things don't really marry well, but
Yeah,
I've shown time and time again that like that's not the case with me. That I can do both really well. So every
right.
year I try to carry that with me and just try to prove people wrong and prove that you can do both.
Right. Well, I think it's awesome that you do both. And I do have to ask because you are a mechanical engineering major. And that's not a major that you just fall into, right? Like you have to have like some passion, some, level of interest in that. So what made you want to study that?
I wouldn't say there was anything specific. It's kind of something I've always been interested in since I was a little kid. So I couldn't even tell you when it started, but I remember being little. So when I first moved to Pennsylvania in 2007, there's an airport that's about 20 minutes away from my house. We would drive past there constantly, and I would always see the planes flying overhead. So I remember like looking up into the sky, being in awe at the planes. Um, and my mom used to tell me that when I was really little, she used to get me puzzles. So I would put the puzzles together. When I would get bored, I would flip them over upside down so I couldn't see the picture and like figure out how to put them together backwards. So it's just kind of always been something I've been interested in since I was young. I'm glad that interest never wavered at all. Like I was able to continue and stick it out because it was 100% one of the hardest things I've ever done. Like doing that through college. Mechanical engineering is kind of like a full-time job, and then football is also like a full-time job. So you do both of them together, it can be kind of a nightmare. But that's why I'm so proud of myself that I was able to do both at the same time. And then for my senior project, we participate in this thing called senior design. So essentially the way it works is that at the beginning of the semester, they give you a list of project tickets. So it's like real jobs that real companies want to sponsor and they want to give to UConn students to do. So I want to say there were maybe 74 to 76 projects. You rank your top 5 and then they put everybody into groups based on that. So essentially what my project was we had to build an electromagnetic cannon that would like fire something underwater, which is it's pretty hard to do in simple terms. But had a really good time working on it all year. My group mates were really cool. And then so at the end of the year in the spring, there's a massive science fair. So everyone comes together, shares their projects, they have judges come in from different companies and they judge every project, and each department they rank the top 3. So my group ended up coming in first place for our department, won $500, which is really cool. So
nice.
Yeah, definitely enjoyed that.
Oh, it's awesome that you have all those experiences, and I'm getting the sense, the feeling that you might use a little more of your brain power than the average human. So, can I assume that you remember most of your big plays?
Yes.
Okay, so what has been your favorite play, or even maybe just a favorite game, if you can't pick one play that you've ever had?
So I'll give you one from my last UConn season and one from this past season. So UConn, and both of them are film study plays. So yeah, 2021 season, I think it was game 5 against Wyoming. We're late in the third quarter. I'm lined up in the boundary. All week on film, we would see Wyoming run this play that we called cross country. So they would have a post coming from one side and then like a deep over coming from the other side. Okay. So I believe we were in thirds on that play. I see the post coming from my side. I look over across the field. I see the over coming. So the way that we were playing it that week, I'm supposed to stay on the post. So I carry it all the way. Mm-hmm. I'm running with the receiver. I look back. I see the ball go up. So I judge the trajectory, put my head down, sprint a little bit, then look back up for the ball and go up and high point it. So that was my second interception of the year. But that was one of my favorite plays because it was such a big game. That was one of the biggest teams that we played that season up to that point. And the game was really close at that point. And we had been dealing with a lot of strife that season. We lost our head coach week 2 of the season. They had to bump up the DC to interim. So there was a lot of uncertainty around the team. So that game being as close as it was, and then me being able to make that kind of a play gave me like a lot of joy. And then running to the sideline, my teammates trying to hype me up. I was actually kind of running away from everybody though, because like you make a big play, everybody starts beating on your helmet. So I was trying to run so I didn't get a concussion. But that's the first play. The second play would be from our game against Florida this past season. Mm-hmm. So another film study play. We had seen them come out in a formation pretty often where they have like 2 receivers in like a dirty stack wide from the formation. Pretty much every time we saw them do that, one of the receivers would step back for a screen, and then the QB would throw it or he wouldn't. But I knew the screen was coming when I saw the formation. So sure enough, like I see them line up in that set in front of me. So I cement my feet, and then I know as soon as I see the receiver step back, I'm gone. And so that's exactly what happened on the snap of the ball. QB throws the ball to the screen guy. The blocker tries to come out at me, but I like kind of brush him away, and then light up the receiver, make the tackle. So that was like a huge play for me in that game, which I really liked.
It must be so like gratifying and just like such a great feeling to be able to make those plays that you've seen on film and be able to act on it in real time. So when you're watching film, what are some of the things that you look out for in your opponent?
Let's see. So it's funny. Like this year, I learned a lot being at Vanderbilt. This season, I truly learned like how to watch film properly. So the way that we would, so they would organize everything really well on our iPads. So we would have like first and second down in one folder, third down in one folder. We'd have like red zone, tight red stuff in another folder. But basically, the way that I would try to break it down, just based on how I learned it, is like see what kinds of stuff they're running in like different sections of the field and with who. Coach Lee, he's one of the smartest coaches I've been around, and he breaks the field down in like a bunch of different zones, and that kind of tells you like, what should you expect in like these areas of the field. Kind of turns it into like football is a chess match, to be honest. So like it kind of helps you understand what kinds of stuff you might get like in different areas. So that's one of the main things that I would pay attention to, and then also like what kinds of routes do they like to run with certain receivers, like who's their main guy. Our assistant coaches or defensive coaches would do a really good job of making cut-ups of like every receiver on each team that we play each week. And he would have folders for their strengths and their weaknesses. So I was making sure to go through those, see how they like to attack people, and then see what ways am I going to be able to succeed in attacking them. So those are a couple of ways that I would like go through film, just things I would look out for.
Okay. And I know you've shown a lot of versatility. Talk about, the fact that, football is a chess match, and, as a corner, you can play both outside, you could play in the slot. I know that a lot of corners will tell you like playing nickel is one of the toughest jobs on defense because there's just so many variables to, what the receiver can run, the routes they could do from that point. So what's your mindset when you're defending the slot versus the outside?
So one is film study. It's imperative, especially in that position, that you kind of have an idea of what kind of stuff they like to run there. Because it is one of the hardest places to play DB is over the slot, because they have a two-way go. There's so much room for them to run. But I guess the trick is, and even to playing outside, the trick is to see how much stuff you can eliminate before the play even starts. So a lot of that is like, personnel, who is in the slot, who are you guarding? And then also down and distance can help you try to like figure out, all right, what kinds of stuff might you get here? What kinds of stuff might you get there? And then also like knowing what coverage you're in, because offensives can read coverages. So like they know they might run one thing if they see you in this look, they'll run another thing if they see you in this look. But typically, if you're running like a one high man, they might try to hit like an inside fade from the slot. So if I know I'm running cover one and I'm guarding the slot, maybe expect him to try to hit that slot fade. So it's little things like that could help make it a little bit easier.
Now, is there a specific scheme you think fits your skill sets better than others?
I would say no. I feel like I'm pretty comfortable playing both man and zone. Yeah, I feel comfortable with either.
Yeah, okay. That'll definitely be good for you at the next level. Now, you did get to participate in the Hula Bowl. What was that experience like for you?
It was very interesting. First and foremost, that was the latest I've ever played football ever in my life. So it was a little bit of an adjustment to, my last game was end of November, to kind of have a month and a half before putting the pads back on. And like we were right back into it. Usually you go into spring ball, you'll kind of ease into, like you'll start with helmets, you'll ease into everything before you get back to full pads. But for the Hula Bowl, like we were in full pads right away, and practices were pretty intense. But I definitely enjoyed the week of practice a lot. It was really cool to like just play with all these guys from different schools and then just perform in front of scouts every day. So I enjoyed it a lot. The days were kind of long, so we would get up early. Get up early, eat breakfast. So we were in Orlando. The Hula Bowls at UCF. So we would go over to the stadium, have our meetings in the morning. Then practice was about 2 to 2.5 hours. Then as soon as that was over, we would shower, go back to the hotel. As soon as we walked through the door, everyone's getting a bunch of texts from like different scouts, like, hey, I want to talk to you here. I want to talk to you here. They were stationed at different points of the hotel. So it was a little bit tiring, but it was still a really cool experience, just being able to finally say that like I'm, a lot of scouts are interested in talking to me. Like I'm finally, in the midst of my draft process, was really cool. And then the game itself, I'm going to be honest. So the game wasn't really for corners. I think both sides ran the ball probably 90% of the time. So I feel like somebody was trying to get out of there. It felt like a high school game. I think it was maybe 2.5 hours. but it was a really cool experience just to get that invite, go through the practice week, and then just be a part of that whole thing. I really enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I know from I think more from the scouting perspective, I think what they pay attention to more so than the game is like the one-on-ones, the practice week
Yeah,
and all
and
that. So
that's what people were telling me
yeah.
before even starting it, was that like the practice week is going to be the main thing. Like that's what scouts are going to be paying attention to. Like they're gonna want to see your one-on-ones and team reps and all that. Practices were really competitive.
Yeah, oh, I bet. Is there anyone that you kind of remember going up against that you especially enjoyed going up against, or that like kind of pushed you a little bit harder?
Let me think. I'm trying to remember what school he was from. Um, I don't remember the school, or I would need to go. I would need to go look at the roster. But there were some pretty good receivers on both teams. I'll say that much.
And I know you had a visitor that went down to see you at the Hula Bowl, Mr. Eric Crocker. And I only mention him because everyone on 49ers Twitter knows who Croc
Knows who he
is.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, we love Croc, man. And a little birdie told me that you've been training with him. So
Mhm.
how did that come about? Like, did he hit you up first, or did you know him
Yeah,
before?
so that's thanks to my dad. My dad does a ton of work behind this. So like I do what I have to do on the field, and then he does a ton of work behind the scenes off the field. So it was a few years ago, but we somehow came across his Twitter account. So my dad's like DMing him. He's sending me some clips from from some of my UConn games, just like asking for critiques and stuff.
Mhm.
So Croc hits him back, is giving me some critiques. So I'm reading them. It's pretty cool experience because I'm like, wow, like this high profile guy is critiquing my film and giving me pointers. So it ended up turning into my dad asked if he would be interested in training me, because he had never trained. I'm the first college athlete that he's trained so far. Um, or at the time I was the first. So my dad asked, would he be interested in doing that? So we set something up. I flew out to where he was at in Arkansas, and I
Mhm.
had a few sessions with him. And those went really well. We went out to dinner with him a couple of times while we were there too. So we were just able to establish a pretty long lasting connection with him. And then I've gone back down to train with him a couple of times since then. And he will definitely be a guy that I go and train with regularly in the future. So that's how that relationship started.
That's awesome. I love to hear it. And he had nothing but great things to say about you when I told him that I was going to be interviewing you today. So and I know now like you're preparing for your pro day. So what's a typical training day been like for you these days?
So I just came back from Florida. So the facility I'm working out at is called X3. They have a location here in Nashville where I'm at, right down the street from Vanderbilt. This was their first location. Their second location just opened up, I think, a few years ago down in Fort Myers in Florida. So that's where I just came from. The schedule down there is a little bit different than the one up here. So I'll just talk about the one that I had down there. But so typically, I'll walk you through the whole week. So Mondays, we would have linear speed in the morning, lift in the afternoon. Tuesdays we would work on the short shuttle in the morning, and then we would break off for our position work in the afternoon. Wednesdays was just a lift in the morning, and then like they would bring a yoga specialist to come in
Mm.
later that day. Wednesdays and Saturdays the yoga specialist was coming in to take us through some stuff. Thursday we would do more linear speed and then do more position work in the afternoon. And then Fridays we would double up the run and the lift. So we would work on L drill, and then immediately after that we would go into our lift. So that was pretty much the whole schedule. It wasn't super aggressive. I felt like there was a lot of time to recover and like do other stuff. I had a rental car while I was down there, so in my off time I would go and like just go for drives, like travel around the place, which was pretty cool. What kind of sucked though was that it was kind of a bad time to be down there because of the hurricane that happened recently. A lot of stuff was
Mm.
closed, and the beaches were kind of ravaged. But it was still an enjoyable experience. I definitely got everything that I was looking for out of going down there.
Well, that's good. And I know it is like typically a very exhausting time, very busy time. And I know with the combine a couple weeks ago, a lot of lot of guys participated in that. Is there extra motivation to try to beat some of those times? Some of the other corners got?
100%. All I'll say is I like what I was seeing from some of those times.
I
And
would
then,
too.
so one of my teammates, actually Anthony Orji, he was at the combine and he had a really great showing, which inspired me a lot because I just shared the field with him for this past season. So it was really cool to see him doing his thing. And I'll see him soon pro day here. He jumped to 38 and a half, so I definitely am going to have to beat that. I can't let him jump higher than me. So I'll use that as motivation.
Well, that's awesome. Have you guys been like sharing advice as well? It must be cool to be going through this experience with him as well.
Yeah, a little bit, and then just congratulating each other and wishing each other luck. Because I was in the Hula Bowl, he played in the Shrine Bowl. So just talking a little bit about that.
Well, have you been keeping tabs on March Madness? Because I know Vanderbilt's they're moving on.
Yeah, pretty upset that they didn't make it in, but I know they're in the NIT right now. I know they have another. They just beat Yale last night. They've got another game on Saturday that I'm pretty excited
they play
to go
Michigan on Saturday. Yeah, I'm not much of a March Madness person, so I thought they were in because
they went on such a good
but
run.
they're on NIT. Okay, I was like
for weeks, all I would see on Twitter is Vandy wins. It was awesome to see.
Yeah, no, I'm sure because I'm sure like you might know some of those guys as well, so I'm sure that's cool. But Jeremy, this has been a lot of fun. I'm gonna ask you one last question. I always like to end my interviews with this. What is a team? What is a fan base getting with you both on and off the field?
So first and foremost, a hard worker. I pride myself on work ethic. That's something that's gotten me this far. It's something that's going to continue to get me far. You're going to get a guy who's going to be 100% devoted to the organization, devoted to the cause. I'm going to give everything that I have every week. So you don't ever have to worry about that. I'll give 150% all the time.
Awesome. What about off the field?
Off the field, let's see. What should I give you? I'll give you a hobby of mine. So something that I've got real big into over the last couple of years is cooking. So I think it was at the start of the pandemic, a lot of colleges, sent, or pretty much every college, sent people home, didn't have them come back for the rest of the school year. So that was the first time, I want to say since the end of my senior year of high school, that I had been at home for a really long extended period of time. So I was, needless to say, I was pretty bored. So I was looking for something to do. So I got into cooking. I started off with making pizzas from scratch. So my mom would go and, not fully from scratch. My mom would go and buy dough from Wegmans. She would buy dough, mozzarella cheese and pepperoni. So I would just, throw pizzas together. I would post those on my Instagram story, and then people would swipe up saying "Oh, this looks really good. This looks really good." Put some pineapple on it, and then I would say, "No, that's a crazy idea." And then eventually, I got the idea to to do a poll. So I asked people what kinds of other stuff would you want to see me make? So got a ton of responses. One of the most common responses at the time was cinnamon rolls. So I actually learned how to make cinnamon rolls completely from scratch. So I make the dough and everything, and I make the icing too. I started a little cinnamon roll enterprise after that because I made a batch just to test it out. Called my mom downstairs. I gave her one. She nearly passed out and said that you need to sell these. So I started selling them around the area where I live, and then now I kind of run a mini cinnamon roll business whenever I go home.
What? That's awesome.
Then it's kind of blossomed out into more. So I have a ton of recipes under my belt. I can make a lot of stuff. I actually just made some chicken and rice last night for dinner. But yeah, cooking is a really big hobby of mine. So that's something that would be pretty interesting about me off the field.
That's definitely the most unique answer that I've gotten to that question. So I definitely appreciate that. And maybe, in the future we get in the off season, maybe we'll get some Jeremy cooking videos. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. A lot of people have been asking me to start a TikTok, so I might consider that one day.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been an absolute pleasure. Good luck on your pro day. When is your pro day?
March 28th at 2 p.m.
March 28th. All right, it's coming up soon. I'm going to be keeping tabs on that. I'm going to be checking on Twitter, checking the results. Good luck on the draft and beyond. Like I said, gonna keep tabs on you and make sure we stay in touch.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. If you enjoyed this interview, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. There will be plenty more content like this to come. In fact, I'll be live shortly after this talking about the 49ers free agency moves for the day. But for now, have a good rest of your Wednesday, people. Peace.